are you? It's good to see you. I know that starting a new school is always a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing, especially starting a new school in somewhat unusual circumstances. And I just want to reassure you of a couple of things. First, operating a school successfully in the middle of a pandemic is something that we have some experience doing. And fortunately, this year is not our first rodeo. And so we've got some of this under our belt already. Second thing I'll tell you is that we have some really good teachers in middle school who have done an amazing job in the last year managing to help students learn with incredible effectiveness, even with all of these safety measures that we have in place. We had very few problems with COVID in middle school last year. Our middle schoolers did not miss one single unscheduled day during the course of the school year. We had very few problems with very few COVID cases among our middle schoolers last year. The vast majority of our issues were among our 11th and 12th graders, those kids who have driver's licenses and like to socialize off campus. And so we're incredibly grateful that all of you are here at Southlake and here during this time. I don't want to steal Mrs. Thomas's thunder, but the head of our middle school is later going to say something like this: nobody peaks in middle school, and that's okay. Your middle school days may not be the ones you look back on and say, those were the best years of my life. But in all likelihood, you're going to look back and you will have grown and you will have learned and you will have had good experiences that you can draw on that will help set you up for success in the years that come. So before Mrs. Thomas comes, I'd like to open us up with a word of prayer and then turn it over to her. So let's pray. Our God, thank you for these students and their parents. We do trust your guidance for the days ahead. We pray for wisdom, discernment. We pray for compassion and patience. I pray for our teachers that they would teach well, that they would minister with compassion and kindness, that you would help these students to make friends, to feel comfortable very quickly among their peers and their teachers at our school. I pray that they would learn and that they would grow as people, and this would be a successful year. We pray for health and safety and protection, and a year that we can look back on and say that you were good to us and we were good to one another. In this we pray, amen. Ladies and gentlemen, the head of the middle school, Mrs. Jennifer Thomas.
Welcome. Dr. Curlin has already welcomed you. Please allow me to do the same. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your last few days of summer to come and join us. I hope that you find your time today to be very well spent, very valuable. The goal, students, is for you to have a sense of kind of what your first day might look like, where your classes are, what your teachers look like. I am going to ask at some point today for the teachers to come up in front of you, forewarned, I didn't tell them before right now, because I want you guys to be able to spread out when I introduce you and take your masks off so that they can see your whole faces. I think that's such an important part of that first day of introduction. And then we're going to let you walk to your classes, find out where all your rooms are, and then find your locker so that you know kind of where you're headed to stow your book bag on the first day. Please rest assured we will have time for you to set up your lockers on that first day. We are trying to avoid all doing it at one time today with all of the parents and students on campus, so just send your children with their locker things on that first day, and we will make sure that we give them time in an orderly and structured way to get those lockers set up. And I have a lot of faculty with a lot of experience with getting lockers set up, so they will do a fabulous job of helping your student or get organized on that first day. Let me restate in a slightly different way something that Dr. Curlin said. Our vision for the middle school at Southlake, it's really important, I think. Students, it's really important for you to have a vision of kind of what you want your life to be like. And that vision from your age is going to change a whole lot, but hanging on to a vision and then striving toward that vision is a really critical part of your ability to be successful and to land where you intended to land eventually. So our goal, our kind of vision for the middle school is that it will be a safe, loving, supportive, and well-guided environment for parents, your children, to make what truly is probably the most significant and most difficult transition of their life. Because they're going to go from being very, very dependent on you, on their homeroom teacher, on their bus drivers, to being very independent from you, from their teachers. And they need to learn how to walk successfully on their own 2 feet and to do so in a way that advocates well for them, that enables them to be very successful, and just sets them up to have a joyful high school experience. It is not reasonable for anybody to think that we're going to look back on middle school and say, yeah, I kind of want to do that over. Right? Adults, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because it would be a waste of time. There is not an adult I've ever met who has said, I really want to go back to middle school. So then what is the goal? What's reasonable for us to aspire to achieve with your students, with our students? And I think what's reasonable is for us to aspire that they will leave the Southlake Middle School with the confidence that they have the tools necessary to be successful in the high school environment. That those tools they will have spiritually, they will have them organizationally, they will have them structurally, they will have them intellectually, they will have them in their interpersonal relationships, so that when they have a question, they feel confident about going to an adult or going to an advocate and seeking that assistance for themselves, with the knowledge and confidence that you are right there behind them, ready to support them, ready to step in if things are not going the way that they should, but they feel confident that they can take that first step on their own. And that's the goal of the middle school at Southlake, is to launch students into their high school experience confidently with great joy, and knowing that God has designed them with a unique set of skills, a unique set of strengths, and all of us a unique set of challenges that we are going to face and head on and overcome as we become adults. Because students, if your parents are honest with you and you ask them when they're not angry and they're not in a hurry, are there things that you struggle with as an adult? Things that are hard for you to do? Things that you don't really like to do? That you have to do anyway? They are going to tell you yes. And if you're lucky, they'll share with you what those things are. And those things are okay. They are what make us unique and uniquely gifted to be exactly the member of the community that we were designed to be. That said, we have intentionally structured our middle school to help drive toward that level of independence. We've chosen at Southlake to start middle school in 5th grade, where 5th and 6th grade are intermediate school and 7th and 8th grade are junior high. And we've done that to spread out the number of changes that we are asking a student to make in any given quarter, in any given semester, in any given year. The goal is not to just throw them into the deep end of the pool of middle school and say, good luck, yell if you need help. But instead to say, in 5th grade, we're going to focus on these skills and these changes and these things we need to overcome. And then in 6th grade, we're going to do a little more and a little more and a little more until we go into high school with all of those things in place. So you'll see that in all areas, in our discipline, in our late work policies, and our homework, and all of those things. But the probably the single most easy way for me to explain to you that type of incremental improvement that we're looking for is just to talk a little bit about the schedule, which is important for you to know anyway. So it's a win-win. You get to know something you really want to know about, and I get to explain something that I really need to explain. In 5th and 6th grade, we begin our day in a homeroom class, and we travel with that class all day long to different classrooms, with the exception, 6th graders, of your specials rotation, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So you travel with the same group of people. Parents, what that does is allow your student the opportunity to learn how to interact with different teaching styles, different teaching personalities, different seating arrangements, different classroom environments, different types of content, different modes of instruction. But to do that change with the comfort of the same group of classmates. Then in 7th and 8th grade, we actually move to a more matrixed model where students are not in class with the same group of people, but because of our size, they see some of the same familiar faces all day long. So that's just one example of a way that we are looking for students to kind of grow incrementally in their ability to manage that rotation and the different style of learning that is required of an independent high school student than what they were when they were a self-contained elementary school student. That said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the specials rotation for 6th grade and then for 7th and 8th. 6th graders, you have a specials rotation in the middle of your day. You have 5 days of specials because there are 5 days in the week. 2 of those are spent in a music class with either Mr. Jose Bass, who is our symphonic band instructor, or Mrs. Marianne Foltz, who is our choir director. 1 of those days is spent in art class. If you were in 6th grade, you have art in that hallway with Mrs. Marin Steger, and if you were in 7th and 8th grade, you have art in that same hallway, different classroom with Mr. Marcus Mims. You also have music, art. You have PE, so you'll have a rotation of PE in 6th grade. And then you will have a rotation of a comp class. Composition is a Southlake distinctive. We actually separate a specific writing curriculum and augment our English language arts instruction with a focused effort, and that's 1 day a week in 6th grade for that class, although they do writing across the board in many of their language classes, as well as in history, as well as in science, as well as in Bible. Then in 7th and 8th grade, comp actually becomes a half a credit class that they have for 45 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week, depending on the rotation that we're in. Okay, so that's one of the Southlake distinctives, is that comp rotation. Then for my 7th and 8th graders, you have a couple of other classes that appear in your schedule as well. Composition is one of them. You also have a class of Spanish. You do have PE, but it'll be 2 or 3 times a week instead of just once a week like you have in 5th and 6th grade. 5th and 6th graders, don't worry, you have recess every day, so we get you outside no matter whether you got PE or not. We do have PE, Spanish, comp. We have a technology curriculum for 7th and 8th grade that talks to students about, really it's focused a lot on application usage, so how to use Word successfully, how to use Excel, how to use PowerPoint, as well as how to use our internal tools to Southlake, and things like safe internet usage and things like that. And we have Bible, which in 6th grade meets 3 days a week, and in 7th and 8th grade is either 2 or 3 days a week, depending on the kind of week that we're in. Lots of information. I know that you are not going to remember it all. I'm not expecting you to remember it all. I am going through this for a couple of reasons. The first is to just give you a wash-over understanding of kind of what classes you're taking. The other thing is we are recording this presentation for people who were not able to attend today, and so I want them to have an understanding of their schedule, in spite of the fact that, unlike you, they will not actually have their schedule when they end today. You will actually get a printout of your schedule before you walk away today. So you'll know what classes you have, what teachers you have, and what order you will have them in. Okay? So that is what I have to say about the schedule. I want to talk a little bit about that, how that schedule requires students to behave a little bit differently. And parents, I would ask that you help us help them to be able to do that successfully. So I mentioned earlier that one of our goals is to help students to guide them to become independent, successful high school learners. because you want them, parents, to make mistakes now. You want them to mess up in 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grade because it's inevitable. If you, unfortunately, are a parent who thinks that your student is going to get through their entire educational career without making a single mess up, I am very sorry to be the person to tell you that that is not possible. Please remove that expectation from your mind. They're going to make a mistake, and it is highly likely that it'll be a reasonably big one. And that is okay. We learn the most about ourselves and about how to manage life when we make a mistake and learn how to recover from it. I tell students all the time, you cannot control what life throws at you, but you can control how you respond. And the goal that we have is for them to overcome challenging things and to learn how to respond. So let them make those mistakes and let them try to advocate for themselves. Students, big news, listen up. If you have a concern, a question, if you feel like something that has happened to you in class or between classes or at lunch or at H block or at specials or at recess, if you feel like something hasn't gone the way that it should, maybe you think it's unfair, something wasn't handled the way that you wish that it had been, the very first person that you should probably talk to about that is the teacher that was in charge when that thing happened, or the teacher that gave you that grade, or the teacher who spoke to you in the hall. And if you don't know who that teacher is, maybe it was somebody from another area of the school, you can always come to Mrs. Howland, you can always come to me. You can go to any one of our teachers and they will help you figure out who you need to speak with to get the help that you need. Because it is very important that you have an opportunity to explain respectfully what you feel like hasn't gone the way that you wish that it had. And you should feel safe and loved and welcomed to do that in our middle school. Parents, I would encourage you to let your children do that for themselves. Now, you are their parent. You also have discernment that exceeds that of a 12 to a 14-year-old. If your child brings you something and you say, did you talk to the teacher? And they say, no, I'm too whatever. You know whether it is something appropriate to encourage them to bring on their own. You know what your kid is capable of better than do I. So yes, we expect that you would use your parental discernment, but please don't just insert yourself immediately. Please give your child the chance to learn that they have a voice and that that voice should be heard. Because that is what we desire for them. We desire to hear their voices, learning how to say words that are important to them. So parents, here's a piece of parenting advice. You may have already come up with this, or you may not know it yet. But if your child gets in the car at the end of the school day and says, you would not believe what happened in blankety blank, please give them an opportunity to tell you from their perspective what happened. And then I want you to ask this question. Oh, I understand. That must have been very upsetting. Can you help me know what happened right before that? That is a very important question to ask your children. If this thing happened that you didn't like how it went, what happened right before that thing happened? Because very often as parents, and I know this both as an administrator and as a mama, okay, I have a stepson who turns 30 on Wednesday. I've got a daughter who is 19 and starting her sophomore year at West Virginia University, and I have a son who is a junior in the high school here at Southlake. I've had to learn this lesson, and it's not a pleasant lesson to learn. My children make mistakes. They are not perfect. The mistakes that they make do not reflect on me as a parent. The mistakes that they make are theirs. They are theirs to make, they are theirs to own, they are theirs to overcome. They do not reflect on me, but they are an opportunity for me to allow Jesus to reflect through them. And so give your kids that chance. Let them advocate. And if they don't feel like they can, or if their advocating didn't have the desired outcome, they're going to come to you, and then I'm going to ask for you to go to the teacher. Please. Most of the time, probably 95% of the issues that we have can be addressed if a parent will just reach out to a teacher and say, I don't understand what happened, can you help me understand? I will tell you, they're going to respond more appropriately and with better information if they do not feel attacked. Seek to understand what happened. Let me tell you something about my staff, my faculty. They love what they do. Every single one of them. They love what they do and they choose to do it over and over and over again. And let me tell you something, people who choose to spend the majority of their day with middle school students have got to be called to do that job. Okay? So they love your kid. And if something went sideways, there's probably a misunderstanding that needs to be addressed, and you can help facilitate that if you just seek to understand what happened. Now, there are going to be times when whatever it is so big or you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. I mean, it's easy to learn one name, a little harder to learn 12. You are welcome to contact Mrs. Howland. You are welcome to contact me. If you don't know where to go, if you're not comfortable going, or if you've been and not gotten a resolution that you can live with. You are welcome to come to us. We have an open door, an open phone, an open voicemail, an open email. We have all of the open things. Okay? Just come to us and we will help you strategize that situation. So, escalations work from the child to the teacher, from the parent to the teacher, and then from the parent to the administrator. Okay? Okay, let me take a minute and pause because we're going to go through some laundry next. And you know, laundry is that stuff that you just got to do or things get really out of sorts, but you don't necessarily love it. So let me pause when we've talked about some of the more overarching ideas and take questions. Students, if you have questions about what I have said and you are brave, I am asking for questions from you and your parents. So please feel free to raise your hand if you're a student, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Lizzie?
Last year they did science and Latin. Why are they doing the research?
They are. Mhm. She asked, so Lizzie is actually a returning student. Welcome back, Lizzie. She was here in 5th grade, and she asked a scheduling question about what the 5th and 6th graders go through, and I will actually go through that when I introduce the teachers. I really find that for parents and students' sake, if I talk about the subjects that they teach while the teachers are in front of them, it helps to make that initial connection first instead of me talking in a vacuum. And the answer is there have been no significant scheduling changes in 5th and 6th grade, with the exception of everybody now gets recess. Hallelujah. Any other questions? Okay, let me move on to some housekeeping items then. So the first thing that I want to do is to introduce you to the most important person on the upstairs floor of Hampton Hall. No lie, I promise, and that is Mrs. Kim Howland, who is our Dean of Students for the middle school. Mrs. Howland knows everything there is to know about middle school. She knows what day of the week it is, because sometimes I forget. She knows whether it's a blue or a gold day for 7th and 8th graders. You're going to want to know if Wednesdays are blue or gold, and she always has that information for you. She knows about sports. She knows about activities. She knows about lunches. She knows about H-Block. She knows everything there is to know. So if you can't find a teacher or you don't know where to go to Mrs. Howland. She will have the answer, or she will get it for you. Parents, when your student is going to miss school, Mrs. Howland is the person that you must contact. You may also contact your child's teachers, me, their grandparents, the postman. You can tell anybody you want that your kid is going to miss school, as long as that list includes Mrs. Kim Howland. She makes sure that everybody who needs to know knows that your child is missing on that day. And while we're talking about absences, absences occur in 2 flavors, the kind that we cannot control and the kind that we can. Mrs. Howland is the person that you're going to contact for both flavors of absences. But let me talk for a minute about the kind that we can control. It is very important, parents, that now that your student is rotating classes, they miss as little school as they can possibly manage. If your child is a competitive athlete and they need to go miss for a soccer tournament in Timbuktu, or they need to go drive a race car, or they need to go to gymnastics nationals, please take them. I will be the loudest person cheering for them. You might hear me all the way from here to where you are, because I'm real loud. Okay? Those I consider unavoidable absences as long as they're reasonably in control, right? If they don't exceed a certain number, I'll call you. If you get there, you're not going to get there. Parents, here's where we run into trouble though. I know, because I'm a mom, I know that family time is valuable. I know that there are opportunities that your children will have to travel with you that will be very exciting for you to think about taking them. But I would like you to consider who suffers when they miss school. Because the person who suffers the most is usually your kid. Not because we don't try. We're going to do everything we can to help them. We will go to RenWeb, we will print lesson plans, we will print homework, we will provide as much material as we can, we will post lessons if we can, we will post recorded instruction. But nothing can replace live instruction in a classroom. That's why it's so important to us that we have live instruction in a classroom. I apologize, I'm watching my time. I want to make sure I don't go too long and take your time to look at your classes. Please avoid as much as you possibly can pulling your child out of school for an unnecessary reason. Conversely, please do not send them to school sick. We will make sure that they get caught up. Sickness is not unavoidable. I lied. Sickness is unavoidable. Okay? Sickness is unavoidable. It's going to happen. Please try to avoid the other ones, especially in 7th and 8th grade, because y'all, we have made a change. In 7th and 8th grade, we are blocking science and history. Here's what that means. There will be a double class period of either science or history in either the fall or the spring for 7th and 8th graders. So if you're a 7th grader, you are going to have 7, 8, science in the fall. And you're going to have that for 2 class periods, which means if you miss 1 day of school, how much instruction have you missed? 2 days worth. If you are an 8th grader, you are going to have history in the fall. Same is true. If you miss a day of school, it's 2 days worth of instruction. Oh my goodness, why would she do that? Number one, it helps with students' academic load. It reduces 1 core academic class from their schedule each semester. We have busy kids. They play sports, they do things. We want them to play sports and do things. So I'm going to reduce their core load by 1. The second is it lets those teachers go deeper into the content because they have time to do it. A history project, ask Mrs. Bussell, who teaches 5th and 6th grade, it's super hard to get done a good history project in 45 minutes. It's nearly impossible, you can talk to Ms. Vance, to get a good science lab done in 45 minutes. Giving history and science time to do that is really good for the instruction. So it's good for homework load, it's good for the instruction, and back to my first point, our high school at Southlake is on a 4x4 block schedule. Classes run for 90 minutes. There's 4 in a semester. Every single class. Every single class. So it's really great for our 7th and 8th graders to have a chance to practice how to manage in that blocked environment, how to manage the level of concentrated effort it takes to manage a 90-minute class. Because, I don't know, this is probably not a secret, there's not a huge developmental difference between a 7th and a 9th grader. And if we're expecting our 9th graders to go to a block, then we need to start training them when they're a little bit younger. So we are doing 7th and 8th grade block just in science and history. Let me also take a moment and talk about the resources available to you as a parent to help your child stay on top of their things, okay? Because they need to stay on top of their things. We talked about that independent learning. Your child will have their own login to our system called RenWeb. RenWeb is our student information system. Parents, you have already experienced it. It is what you used when you filled out your child's enrollment packet. That system shows their schedule, their grades, their homework, their lesson plans. All of it is in that system. We also use a system that is student-facing only called Google Classroom. Parents, your students will be given their login credentials to both systems in the first week of school. They will know how to access RenWeb and how to access Google Classroom. If you need to step alongside them and help them, you can do that through RenWeb. You cannot do that through Google Classroom. Our Google Classroom environment is set up for the security and safety of our students to only accept users with an @southlakechristian.net email address, which means we cannot give access to parents. So if you are logged into your default Google account, parents, and your kid tries to add a class, it's not going to let them do all of the things that they need to do. Here's a tech tip. If you are in the Google Classroom environment, look in the top right corner of your screen for the little icon that either has your picture or a picture that you picked, or your initials if you picked nothing. And make sure when you touch on that that you're logged in at your @southlakechristian.net email address, students. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do in Google Classroom. So a teacher might put on RenWeb where parents can see, student needs to complete activity 3 in Google Classroom. Okay. Parent, you don't have access to activity 3 in Google Classroom, but your kid does. And if they forget their login credentials, we're going to make sure that those are housed in their agenda or in their tech notebook from their tech classes in 7th and 8th grade. So they need only go to that notebook, pull in their credentials, and then you can help them navigate that system. Questions about housekeeping, attendance, RenWeb, Google Classroom. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a secret. There is a RenWeb app. You can get it on the App Store for Android or for iPhones. It costs $4.99 for every login that you connect to it. So parents, $4.99, students, $4.99. There is no reason that your child needs to have that app on their phone. It might be helpful to them. They don't need it. They can use a web browser, and they can use a web browser if they have a smartphone on their phone and access everything from RenWeb. And here's the secret. In September, we are rolling out a new app for parents and students that will be free. So if you don't want to pay the $4.99 for every member of your family to have the RenWeb app, just hold on. Just hold tight with me for another couple of weeks, and we will give you access to a free app, barring any unavoidable, insurmountable, unexpected technical challenges. It will come out in September. Okay? All righty. So I think, and look at me, I'm on time. Oh, one last thing. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Rebecca Leonard had intended to be here today. She has not made it. She had some unavoidable, insurmountable, unexpected challenges that came up to talk to you briefly about our ADC, our Academic Development Center. It is not uncommon during these years, 5th through 8th grade, for us to find students who have been able to compensate for learning differences in a self-contained classroom with a super focused teacher, who then find that those challenges are a little bit more detrimental when they get to the middle school rotating class schedule. So if you see things happening to your child academically that are unexpected, not one thing, but a pattern of things, please reach out to your child's teacher or me or Mrs. Leonard, Rebecca Leonard, and we will be happy to kind of walk alongside you and determine, is this just a growing pain as they transition to Southlake? It is a growing pain as they go into middle school? Or is this something that indicates that your child needs some sort of outside intervention? And our Academic Development Center is very well equipped to provide that intervention, and Mrs. Leonard is the director of that program. So please be sure to monitor. If there are things that are of concern to you, please feel free to reach out. And now it is time. If I could ask my teachers, please, to go ahead and come forward and spread out across this space up here and take off your mask. Dun, dun, dun. We're about to have the big reveal. The big reveal. Alrighty, I am going to start with my 5th and 6th grade intermediate teaching team. I'm going to first talk about Miss Elizabeth Clemmer and send her regrets for not being able to join us today. She also had an unexpected, insurmountable personal issue that came up, so she was not able to join us, but she is looking forward to meeting you all on the first day of school. Miss Clemmer teaches 5th and 6th grade math. And then I'm going to start over there on the end. Mr. Alex Ray is our humanities teacher in 5th and 6th grade. Our humanities curriculum provides students with instruction in Bible 3 days a week. They also study Latin 1 day a week to learn those roots and prefixes and suffixes and help grow their vocabulary and help them decode new words. And he additionally teaches our STEM curriculum in 5th and 6th grade. On Wednesdays, our 5th and 6th graders visit our STEM lab in the basement of Hampton Hall and do all kinds of cool and fun things. That's Mr. Ray. Next to Mr. Ray is Mrs. Ann Bussell, who teaches 5th and 6th grade history. She does such a super job of making history come alive. I am terribly incompetent in history, and I tell she and Mrs. Reeves all the time how much I wish that I had them as teachers and not the teachers that I had, because I think I would be better at it and I would be a better adult for it. 5th and 6th graders, get ready. You're going to be writing in history class. 7th and 8th graders, get really ready. You're going to be writing a lot in history class. So get ready, because we are going to ask you to read and analyze things. Next to Mrs. Bussell is Mrs. Bridget Rolls, who teaches our 5th and 6th grade English language arts curriculum. She is so excited about literature. Even if you don't really like to read, she's going to make you want to read, because she's just so joyful and excited about it. It just bubbles over into her students. She also is responsible for that composition special that I talked about, where the 5th and 6th grade students rotate through composition. Next to her is Miss Kristen Vance, who teaches our 5th and 6th grade science curriculum. She also this year is going to do some character development with our 5th and 6th graders. We kicked off that program last year, and it was so super successful that I wanted to kind of integrate it into some of the regular classroom experiences. So Miss Vance is going to work on that character development with our 5th and 6th graders. That wraps up our intermediate team, with one exception on this very end over here is Jacqueline Nichols, who is our 5th and 6th grade PE teacher. She's one of the other specials teachers, Mr. Jose Bass, who has blessedly agreed to do the videoing of this so that we can publish it for people who weren't unable to join us today, teaches our symphonic band to 5th through 12th graders. And then Mrs. Marianne Foltz, who is tucked in that classroom right there, I'm sure just busily picking music and getting ready, is our choir director. 5th and 6th graders have art back here, and I talked about that. And Mr. Mims. So Mrs. Stager and Mr. Mims, that wraps up that team. Okay, moving on to 7th and 8th grade junior high. Mrs. Stacy Reeves teaches 7th and 8th grade history. She has so many fun projects, and I'm super excited. I walk out of my office, and sometimes her projects have come out into the hall. And I'm always excited on those days, because I get excited, she gets excited, and the kids have a great day in history. Next to her is Miss Cami Parsons, who's going to teach our 7th grade. Now listen, this is a long list. She's teaching 7th grade math and pre-algebra. She is teaching the 7th grade technology curriculum, and she is also on Wednesdays going to do character development with our 7th and 8th graders. And I could not be more excited to welcome Cami to our staff in that role. Next to her, we have Mrs. Farrell Boone, who teaches 7th and 8th grade science. Parents, I meant Spanish. It's the other S word. Thank you very much. She is not teaching science. She's actually going to start this year teaching science in Spanish. Surprise! Mrs. Boone teaches 7th and 8th grade Spanish, and she is also our curriculum director for JK through 8th grade. So if you have curriculum-specific questions, you can reach out to me or her, and we would be happy to address those with you. Next to Mrs. Boone is Mr. Andrew Bennett, who has joined us this year to teach 8th grade math, 8th grade Algebra 1, 8th grade technology, and 8th grade character development. So he's got a busy day as well. We are super excited to get him from Mathnasium. So I am very happy to introduce you to Mr. Bennett. Next to Mr. Bennett is Mr. Stephen Jacobs, who is our 7th and 8th grade Bible teacher. And boy, he is just a solid guy and does such a good job of kind of organizing that some really hard concepts in 7th and 8th grade in a way that kids can understand. So I'm super excited to have him on our staff. He is a former Marine, so his classroom structure is spot on. Next to him is Mrs. Audrey Belvin, who teaches our 7th grade English language arts and composition curriculum. Audrey has this amazing ability, without raising her voice at all, to strike fear and trembling into the heart of both children and adults alike. She can just kind of look at you and say, "Do we need to discuss that further?" And everybody is like, so Mrs. Belvin is so fun to have on our staff. Next to her is Mrs. Kim Wilson, who is teaching our 7th and 8th grade science curriculum. She is in that block schedule as well with Mrs. Reeves. Our 7th and 8th grade science is super exciting. They do a lot of stuff across multiple disciplines within science. And in 8th grade, which will be in the spring, we focus a lot on life science, which prepares our students for biology that they will see in 9th grade. Mrs. Wilson loves rocks most of all. So if you get a chance to study rocks with Mrs. Wilson, you're going to love rocks too. And then wrapping up our teaching staff is Mrs. Kelly Bumgarner, who teaches our literature and composition curriculum to 8th grade. Mrs. Bumgarner and Mrs. Belvin share a little bit of that ability to raise an eyebrow at students and just get complete compliance. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I need to maybe take some lessons with them because I would like to be able to do that. I just get loud. Anyway, that is our teaching staff, and I've already introduced you to Mrs. Howland. I'm going to say my name one more time. It's Jennifer Thomas. I don't care if you call me Jennifer Thompson, but please don't email jthompson@Southlake Christian. That's not me, and it's going to go nowhere. I am Jennifer Thomas, like a gentleman's first name, Thomas. Anyway, I am going to give them an opportunity. Are there people helping you, or you got schedules all by yourself?
I think it would be great if Ms. Vance and Mr. Ray came over and did 6th grade.
Perfect.
And I would do 7th and 8th grade.
Perfect. So Ms. Vance and Mr. Ray, I'm going to let you help her with 6th grade schedules. 7th and 8th grade schedules, we're going to give you new schedules with Mrs. Howland. And for the rest of these teachers, I'm going to give them the opportunity to go to their classrooms so that by the time you get up there, you will have a chance to see them, with one caveat. If you would like to see Mr. Ray's classroom and you are a 6th grade humanities, that's Bible, STEM, and Latin, his classroom is in this building down that hall. So if you exit that door and walk straight down the hallway, you're going to find Mr. Ray's classroom. If you are a 7th or an 8th grader and you want to see what your Spanish classroom looks like, it is in this corner right here. Thank you to our friendly neighborhood stewardess, Mrs. Boone. There is the Spanish classroom, and then right next to her classroom is Mr. Jacob's Bible classroom. So if you want to take a look, 7th and 8th graders, at those classrooms, they're in this corner. And then the rest of your academic classes and your lockers are all upstairs in Hampton Hall. You are welcome to enter Hampton Hall through the covered entrance, because that is where Mrs. Debbie Krieger will be there to unlock the door for you. Unless you're lucky enough to hitch behind somebody who happens to be coming in this end cap door, 7th and 8th graders, you will get badges in your first week of school that will let you access doors. 6th graders, you will be supervised as you go class to class by a teacher. I was asked to make one further announcement, and that is that our school store is open for business today, which means if you need to pick up an extra uniform piece or if you want to look at some spirit wear, you are welcome to do that. That is in the main area of our Wilcox, which is our high school building near the gym. If you toured Southlake, that is likely where you met Mrs. Abernathy. Miss Page would have met you in that building. If you need to visit the clothes closet, and I'm speaking out of turn because it may not be open, but the clothes closet is on the way down to Mr. Ray's classroom as well, so if you need some gently used uniform pieces, you are welcome to pop in there as well.
Do you want to address phones?
Oh yes, thank you so much. I meant to say that during the attendance thing. Miss Howland, see, I told you she knows everything about middle school. I need to talk to, let me do this, my poor faculty. Please feel free to go ahead and go to your classroom. Unless you are Miss Vance or Mr. Ray, then they don't need to stand up here feeling really awkward. And let me look, I'm right on time. I love my time. I'm actually running a little over, I apologize. I am going to talk to you briefly about phones. Parents, I need your help. Our kids are soaked in technology. And it is honestly, mama, administrator, doesn't matter, it's rewiring their brains in a way that is detrimental to their education. It just is. So, I need your help. We do not permit students in the middle school to use their cell phones during the day from 8 a.m. until they leave school. It would help us help them, parents, not to get in trouble if you could avoid texting and calling them on their cell phone during the day and expecting to get a message to them in that way. It encourages them to use their phone in a way that we would prefer that they not. So if you could instead reach out to Mrs. Hallen or myself or any one of the teachers, we would be very happy to get a message to your child. We will make sure that they get it. If there is a family issue that you need to have that communication with your student throughout the day, if you could please let us know that that's the case. Students, if your parents forget, it's on you to remind us, like, hey, my brother is having an ACL surgery today, and my mom's going to text me and let me know how he's doing. Great. We are so supportive of you knowing that about your brother. We would love to pray alongside you while he is in surgery and wait on that update. And that needs to happen under adult supervision. So your kid can check their phone in those circumstances, but they have to do it in front of an adult. There's just too much social media. Apple Watches, iPhone, it's all just social media all day long. That pressure that we used to feel in middle school, that social pressure, when you would go to school and you would feel, I don't know, weird and different because everybody does, it follows them. It's in school, then it's in their car, then it's in their house, then it's in their bedroom sometimes. They can't get away from it. That's why this whole feeling of just an overburden of emotional drain is happening to our teenagers. Protect them. Help us protect them. Those cell phones are off in their locker during the school day. Unless there's an emergency, you just got to let us know, okay? Did I miss anything else? Okay, excellent. Then, 7th and 8th graders, Mrs. Hallen in the white dress. 6th graders, we are split.
One's going to do t-shirts, one will be scheduled.
Got it. 6th graders, see Miss Vance or Mr. Ray. You are dismissed. Thank you.